everyone, and welcome to DataHawk's Virtual Summit. So we're very excited hello everyone, and welcome to DataHawk's Virtual Summit. We're very excited to have you all. So thanks a lot for joining us. So in this first session, we're going to talk about the future of e-commerce analytics. And more specifically, we're going to address how e-commerce data warehousing and business intelligence is being used by forward-thinking brands to better operate their business on Amazon and Walmart, but also on other channels. As a starter, there's this saying that too much data can be tough to manage. There's data, and more data for everyone to go through and handle. A long time ago, when you launched your business online, whether it was on Amazon or elsewhere, it was very much on a launch it and they will come approach, and it evolved into some sort of a Wild West before now being in an environment where it's entirely driven by data and algorithmically driven success. This very interesting map shows you to what extent the analytics and process automation space has boomed in terms of the marketing stack, right? This martech stack landscape shows you actually 8,000 vendors, including over 1,000 different ones in the commerce and sales category, according to chiefmartech.com. So this goes on to say to what extent it's very difficult for operators and brands to come through all of this and leverage so many different apps that exist out there. And when you look at the commerce landscape, it's on fire as well. So this is a Lumascape landscape that shows you a little bit more the commerce space. And you can see a lot of players that you may be familiar with here, including on this side, on the demand side, media facilitation, but also on the analytics and attribution side. Though they actually missed mentioning DataHawk here, but you get the drill. There are a lot of players out there that provide data and insights. And actually, if you focus just on Amazon, Walmart, and Shopify, the space is on fire as well. And as you probably know, there's in excess of 100 or 200 different SaaS vendors on the space. And here in this screen, well, we didn't have fun collecting all the logos as the poor guy who did this. But we have a listing here of all the different players that are currently operating on the Amazon and Walmart space. And as you can see, there are a lot of them as well. So with so much data comes the question, how can you actually come through all of it, right? And how can you better leverage it? Because as you're using different SaaS vendors and different providers and data sources, this means that your data is siloed, right? It sits on multiple sources, it sits on multiple apps that you need to log into differently, different interfaces, different ways that the data is being visualized, and you gotta come through all of that. Despite all of this, you still have a lot of limited visibility, and this is what we hear from brands that we speak to. Data collection is super messy for all of you who are operating on Amazon and using Seller Central or Vendor Central. You know to what extent it is a mess to run through, to go through exports and collect and consolidate all of that. And then even so, once you've done the unmanageable task of collecting the data, then comes the time that you need to start analyzing it, right? And data analysis is super complicated right now on the space. And finally, if we go back again to the fact that most operators are leveraging different SaaS tools, this means that SaaS adoption becomes extremely complex and complicated, right? Because internally, as you bring in different SaaS solutions that you're using, you gotta drive adoption across your team. You gotta show everyone how they can leverage your solution, all the different solutions that you're using. So this means that data aggregation and consolidation becomes extremely important to avoid all of those issues and challenges that we've just mentioned. So bringing the data together into one central place, one central system of record in which you can go to and upon which you can build more visualizations and more capabilities. And forward-thinking brands actually are increasingly building e-commerce warehousing capabilities. As you can see in this charting here from Google Trends, interest for data ownership, data aggregation, and data consolidation has exploded over time, right? You can see on the in the blue color search interest for e-commerce warehouse, and in red for e-commerce data. And of course, as one would expect, we've hit all-time highs during the past 12 to 24 months, and this is probably only going to continue exploding. And COVID for sure has definitely accelerated this shift. And no matter the brand sizes, actually, in conversations we're having with brands from our side at DataHawk, we see brands of all sizes adopting this, especially as now consumption or the price to access data is increasingly becoming affordable and increasingly becoming based on consumption and not on you being a Fortune 5000 brand or not. And the way that forward-thinking brands are leveraging all of this data and tapping on it to build intelligence on top of it is that, you know, they're not just combing through that data for the sake of looking at data, but they're properly leveraging it and using it to answer specific business questions. And so what they do is that as a very first step, they start with these SaaS data providers that they're using to get data on multiple areas, right? Whether it is CRM and customer data or marketing data, Google Analytics data, Facebook ads data, Google ads data, or Amazon and Walmart data, right? Which can notably come from using DataHawk. So brands are increasingly collecting data from all these different sources in different ways, right? It can be via APIs, or it can be via better integrations that these SaaS providers have built, such as what we did at DataHawk with DataHawk Connections. And then what they're doing is that afterwards, they're pulling all of this data and storing it on a single data warehouse that they build internally, whether it is on Snowflake, on Google BigQuery, on Azure, on Amazon Redshift, or other data warehouses. And then increasingly more, once they've had data in a single place, well, first of all, this means that they don't have to go and log in to 10, 5, or 20 different SaaS solutions to look at analytics on different dashboards. They have everything into one central place. And then afterwards, they start building data visualization on top of it, right? And such data visualization can sit on something like Power BI, Tableau, Metabase, ThoughtSpot, Sisense, Domo, Google Data Studio, or even Snowflake, or even a Google Sheets, right? Even Google Sheets. And then afterwards, they work on answering specific business questions by better leveraging this data. And this is all the more important as those SaaS data providers won't necessarily go as far as to answer these business questions, right? How am I performing SEO-wise? How can I do better? What's the next thing I should prioritize tomorrow? What should I be alerted on? How is my market share evolving? What products should I launch, etc.? Most of them just provide raw data and then leave it up to the brand managers and operators to better leverage it. And what we're seeing is that brands are using their internal resources, they're using data analysts, they're using data scientists, they're using brand managers to build specific visualizations and specific reports and charts and even apps that answer these specific questions. And they're doing it by tapping on this raw data. An example of this, and to double down a little bit on the example of DataHawk Connections, is what we do from our end. So from our end, we launched last month a new product called DataHawk Connections that allows brands essentially to add multiple sources of data. Speaking of Amazon, it can be data pertaining to products, or data pertaining to keywords, or data pertaining to sales performance and expenses, or data pertaining to advertising metrics. Same on the Walmart side. And then once they add these sources, from our end at DataHawk, we start collecting data on these assets on a daily basis. And then brands can easily set up destinations to push the data that we collect at DataHawk to those third-party destinations in a breeze. This means that in a minute or two, they can easily set up a synchronization of data from DataHawk to a Google Sheets document, or maybe to Power BI directly, or to Snowflake, etc. And then be able to build whichever visualizations they want on top of that data. So as you'd guess, the big benefit to this is that brand managers and the team internally can agree on using a single solution, can agree on using a single BI solution, and increase adoption and usage, etc., as opposed to being scattered across multiple solutions. So to dive deeper on a few examples, there are a couple here that I'd like to share with you. And maybe the very first one we could start with is just answering a question such as this one, right? Did the graphic cards shortage prices come to an end, right? For those of you who are aware of what happened on that front, the supply chain crisis, as you combine it to what's happened on crypto mining, has led to a shortage in graphic cards or GPUs, which led to an explosion in GPU prices. And how can we answer that easily through this kind of data consolidation without being constrained by what DataHawk or another provider would give you as visualization capabilities within their web app? Well, an example of this is what I can show you here in my screen, where easily with just a couple of lines of SQL, you can create a query on Snowflake using data collected by DataHawk, for instance, that shows you how the median price of a specific graphic card has evolved over time, over the past 8 or 9 months in France, right? And you can easily see how price went from highs of 1,000 or 1,200 euros all the way down to a median of 600 today on a median basis for this specific series of graphic cards. Now, again, another example is that the web app that you may be using would constrain you in terms of additional use cases that you'd be able to do, such as being able to see the median price, the price of every single product and how it's evolved over time in a single visualization, where, again, with this approach, you'd be easily able to break down the evolution on an ASIN level and give your team better ways of answering specific business questions, right? How did the median price of toilet paper evolve? Now we're talking about inflation. How is the median price of non-discretionary consumer goods evolving over time, right? All of these questions are going to be very critical to answer in the next couple of weeks and months. And it's easily doable as one aggregates data and has their full data ownership. Now, let's go a little bit further here and answer a very important question and use case that most brands that that start operating on a multi-channel basis face. And that example is, how can I aggregate all my multi-channel data into one single place, right? Because right now, if you're selling on Amazon, if you're selling on Walmart, but also selling on your own store that runs on Shopify or something else, it's a mess, right? It's a mess for you to run your reporting. It's a mess for you to know how things are evolving. And you're probably wasting dozens and dozens of hours a week doing data consolidation. And maybe instead of looking at your performance on a daily basis, you're looking at it on a weekly basis or even on a monthly basis, which would be a catastrophe. Now, to solve that, it's quite easy. You would start by aggregating all of your multi-channel data into a single place. So what you could do as an example, using different data providers, is that you could use DataHawk as an example to pull Amazon and Walmart related data, whether this data is related to your sales, your finances, your advertising, or even search data, publicly available products data. You'd start aggregating it with DataHawk automatically in a couple of minutes. Now, how about your CRM data, right? Your customers, how much they purchased, how many tickets have they opened with you, etc., and probably pertaining to your direct-to-consumer activities on Shopify or any other CMS your website is running on. Well, you could use something like Segment, for instance, to collect all of this data, from Zendesk, from Klaviyo, from other such SaaS solutions. Now, how about marketing-related data, such as Google Analytics data for your e-commerce store, or Facebook ads or Google ads data? Well, you can use specialized solutions like Supermetrics and Fivetran, who easily allow you to fetch all of this data as well, and then connect it to third-party destinations such as Snowflake, Google BigQuery, Azure, Redshift, or even Google Sheets. Shopify-related data, you can use Stitch. That's a solution that can easily allow you to do that. And finally, in case you're using multiple data warehouses, right? There are occurrences in which we're seeing brands using both Snowflake and Google BigQuery or other things. Well, it's always possible to transfer data from a data warehouse to another. And there are some reverse ETL solutions that allow you to do that as well, such as Hightouch or Census, called actually GetCensus. And so as a brand, as you use, for instance, a combination of these solutions, you can have a one-stop shop, and you can have all of your data that sits on your cloud warehouse, and finally get full data ownership and a better visibility on how you're performing. So thank you all for attending this session. Remember that we have a lot of additional sessions that are coming in the next few minutes, so don't miss the next one starting in less than 3 minutes. And it's going to be a great one revolving around how you can build an effective SEO strategy on Amazon. It's going to be led by Zamir Keji, co-founder of This Way Up, a very successful Amazon-focused agency, as well as Reda Benani, an e-commerce manager at Bicel, followed by a session on how to do keyword harvesting and find the best keywords for your Amazon products, led by Tariq from M19 and Michael from AMC Advisors. Thank you, everyone, for attending this very first and short keynote. And thanks for attending DataHawk's Virtual Summit. And we hope that the next sessions are going to be full of new learnings and discoveries for you. And please don't hesitate to follow up with us if you have any questions or comments. As we have 2 minutes left, we can also do some quick polls, and maybe the very first one that we can do could be related to how many SaaS solutions you're using for your e-commerce operations right now. So that's going to be very interesting to see, as many brands today are using multiple solutions, and we'll be able to see answers on that front very soon. And then lastly, the next poll we could launch could be related to which specific SaaS solutions you're using for your e-commerce operations right now, Amazon and Walmart. So we have only a few seconds left for everyone to answer to the polls. All right, so we have some answers that are coming in. And meanwhile, as we have 1 or 2 minutes left, we're going to answer some questions that are coming as well. So Ming is asking whether Amazon PPC data has video and sponsored brands by a stock keeping unit. That is a very good question, Ming. As far as I remember, and if I'm not mistaken, this data is available only on sponsored product ads, but not on sponsored video and sponsored brand. I'm pretty sure it's not available on sponsored brands, but we can have a follow-up on that later on. All right, and maybe just to share some preliminary results on the polls. 2/3 of respondents have answered that they're using 2 to 5 different SaaS solutions for their e-commerce operations. And I see that we're finally hitting our 20 minutes mark. So I'm going to thank everyone for their time and let you all jump on to your next session with Zamir and Rida. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and take care.